to start this off by letting people know I'm what many people would consider a real gamer. Now, different people have definitions, but to me, being a real gamer just means that you're somebody who's specifically an enthusiast for playing video games or gaming. It doesn't matter if your main interest is in being the best Fortnite player or if you like playing retro games that nobody has ever heard of, like Fighting Lair. It doesn't matter if you like playing games as simple and fun as that unfun piece of garbage named Elden Ring or as complex and difficult as Animal Crossing. As long as playing video games is a hobby that you're enthusiastic about, you're considered a real gamer in my book. On the other hand, there are some people who like to police fun and be elitist about what games you have to play in order for people to be able to consider you a real gamer. A lot of the time, those games include a lot of long as fuck RPGs. Now, by no stretch of the imagination do I hate games or gaming. I've been playing games for all my life, from when I was in diapers playing Leapfrog, to downloading Dolphin on my lockdown school computers to beat True Crime, to playing the breaks off of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate through the Corbin Blue 19 times. Throughout my time playing video games and gaming, there's one trend in gaming that I've always noticed that I've never really took a liking to, and that's role-playing games, aka RPGs. No, I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say I've never played an RPG or any game with RPG-like mechanics. You can watch my playthrough where I beat Spider-Man 2018 and that had a skill tree in it, or even when I played Rise of the Ronin this year, and even in the past I remember finding out about Fallout and begging my father to get me Fallout 4 and started playing through some of 3 as well as 4. I say that to say, just because I can enjoy an element of something, that doesn't mean I enjoy it as a whole. There are certain ideas in RPGs that I enjoy, like the idea of conversation trees and being able to respec skill points on a skill tree to change the way that the game is played with your character. Hell, I enjoyed the fuck out of the idea of classes being put in Overwatch. That's originally an RPG mechanic. Out of every single signature thing that RPGs have popularized, there's just one thing I never found fun though, and that's long game length. Now look, I understand the reason why some people love it when their game is 30 plus hours. For me personally, that turns me off to a game that would otherwise grip my attention around the throat. There's a lot of places I can go with this, but I'll start by talking about how it's a long time but not a meaningful one. I've noticed that especially in the RPG genre, there are a lot of games that have excessive downtimes during gameplay, where you're doing a whole bunch of nothing. Sometimes developers stuff their games to the brim with different things to do so people feel like they're getting more value out of their game, but honestly speaking, some games are worth 10 to 15 hours of gameplay and it is what it is. But I understand that it's a role-playing game and that walking around and talking to people is supposed to be part of the core gameplay experience, blah blah blah. I'm very well aware, but I was not finna pretend like that's always fun. There's also a lot of times where you have to walk with Vanessa Carlton to do one thing just to turn around and go back to where you started off just to unlock an interaction where you now have to travel another Vanessa Carlton just to get to your end goal. This is all just to find out that to end your mission, you now have to go to a part of the map that you've never been to before, meaning no fast travel points on it, which if you're a little slow and you haven't been paying attention means another Vanessa Carlton will be traveled. In my experience, a lot of Fallout gameplay is walking around in the world and interacting with a random event that you come across. Just to clarify, again, I'm not goofy. I understand the entertainment value that could come in doing that. It's just that a lot of the time I want to get straight to the main story, main set of objectives, and 9 times out of 10 I keep getting sidetracked by a bunch of shit that either doesn't affect the overall story in a meaningful way or leads to gaining nothing of value. That's why I personally enjoy something like Astrobot way more, where there are a lot of side things to do, such as finding every bot, collecting every puzzle piece, or unlocking all of the galaxy warps. But in order to beat the main story / set of objectives, it's not really required. It is, on the other hand, rewarded though. A lot of the ways that they hide these extra little secrets in the level are implemented in ways so creative that you can't help but wonder, damn, what PlayStation shaped item bumped these niggas in the head to give they ass that creative ass idea? How did they think of that? I know the random events in Fallout are supposed to make you feel like what it's like to live in a wasteland or whatever setting you're in, but video games are for entertainment, and to me personally, that's just not entertainmenting. At the end of the day, you at least get to experience a cool story while walking around in Fallout, unlike what happens when you have to deal with a whole bunch of A lot of the longer game I've experienced just feel like homework by the halfway point. Assassin's Creed games are no different and love to add heavy padding. Here's the typical AC loop. You start by parkouring 100 miles to get to your destination, then you engage in a mission that has the exact same mission structure as well all other missions in the game. Then on top of that, you have to deal with them dragging out the story by giving unnecessary or boring details that literally no one cares about. Now, I understand there are some people that adore this, but I'm not people. Especially if we go by the Constitution, I'm specifically 3/5 of the people, but that's not the type of video we're making today. Whilst games like Astrobot don't have a narrative that explore all these fancy high philosophical themes, it doesn't need to. Sometimes we could just have a ABC 1, 2, 3 story that is enjoyable and possible to sum up in one sentence in totality. If somebody put a Glock with a pack-a-punch switch to the back of your throat and said, "Summarize the story of your favorite video game franchise in 30 seconds or less," and your favorite video game franchise was Assassin's Creed, you would be able to see your speech organs before you'd ever get to the time travel part. On top of that, in my opinion, Assassin's Creed has a story that's bogged down by Stupisoft's fear of making a new IP. To me, a large portion of the story, in my opinion, is making excuses for why this game, that you can tell Ubisoft wanted to make an original IP out of but didn't because they were too scared it wasn't going to be able to return a profit, exists. So they just slap an Assassin's Creed logo in front of the title that they wanted to really give this game, and gave the first random nigga they could name an Apple of Eden, then called it a day instead of making stories that make sense within the franchise and the thematics of what was already pre-established, an original trilogy/quadrilogy. Point is, the reason why people play games is to actually interact with the medium that is entertaining them in meaningful ways. And I personally don't find meaning in slowly walking around through a crowd of people listening to another nigga's conversation. I just felt like a nosy Norel at that point. Then, on top of that, don't get me started with those damn tiptoeing in my Jordans to kill everybody missions. Yes, I understand it's supposed to be a sneaky assassin's game. I don't care though. If it isn't fun, I don't give a fuck what the point of the game is. I'm not playing it. Then, even in a situation where you do play it and actually get to the end, you don't want to ever touch the game again because you feel like you're already done with it, which really tends to impact the games. I love replayability in my games. I love it when a game gives me meaningful alternative objectives to do that challenge my ability to use the mechanics of the game in new and interesting ways. The Last of Us PS3 Remaster Part 2, Part 1, and Part 2 Remaster are all only fun to play one time. The Last of Us story plays out like a fighting game story with walking structure-wise. You'll fight some bad guys, walk from point A to B, and the characters talk to each other a little bit, which is basically a cutscene where you control how fast the characters in it walk while they're talking. Fight some bad guys, then another cutscene, all the way to the end. Which is not to say that it's bad or that it's a terrible idea. It works fine for a first playthrough, but doesn't lend itself well to mix up things on the third or fourth playthrough unless you just enjoy the story that damn much. And which, honestly speaking, if you do enjoy the story a lot and want to just see it again, you're better off just watching the compilations of the cutscenes or watching your favorite YouTuber beat it just to see their reaction to how the story plays out. In Astrobot, on the other hand, not only are there a multitude of secrets for you to be able to go back and get, every level in the game plays differently, and they are constantly introducing new mechanics that are implemented in new and intriguing ways. One of the things The Last of Us and Astrobot share is the fact that you can actually see the ending in other 7 million years, because usually with most other RPGs, they never end! My primary goal of playing a game is to get to the end. One of the things that has kept me from playing Persona in general is the fact that the game is so long. I've heard that 15 hours in, you're still getting tutorials. Now I understand that the game is mechanically rich to the point where things like that are kinda necessary. I personally don't mind sitting down and relaxing by playing a game that requires a wee bit of brain power, cause let's be real, I play fighting games, and to even be functional at fighting games, there's a lot you have to learn. Don't try and go down the path of, oh, you guys are stupid idiots that's afraid to learn to play a game. No nigga, I just don't find it fun to learn this one. I personally don't want to have to read the Bible times 10 Kaioken in order to understand the gameplay, and then have to read a whole nother separate Bible worth of text in the most menial interaction with the barista whilst getting coffee to upgrade my agility or some shit. I just don't care enough. On top of that, a lot of the features in Persona that make it unique just don't sound fun to me. Just imagine you're coming home from school or work just to boot up any major console released after 2010 basically, and put beef in a bowl at a meat shop for a rude ass digital customer just to turn around and lucid hallucinate as hard as you possibly can to save the same dude that said "fuck you" when you served him beef in a bowl with a smile on your face. Can never be me! On the other hand, while playing Astrobot, it's a quite concise and compact game that doesn't have any down moments because the gameplay is constantly finding new ways to engage you without ever overwhelming you. I think Team Asobi has done a phenomenal job of creating an experience where you can basically decide the game's difficulty for yourself dynamically during the gameplay. The levels in Astrobot typically take about 2 to 5 minutes to complete. If you want to go around and unlock every secret without pulling up a guide, it'll take you about 15 max. There's also this cool little feature where you can pay about 200 coins, which is extremely easy to get, after the first time you've beat the level, and have a literal little birdie fly around with you that gives you hints on where previously uncollected items are to help you out a bit. Another thing that I like about how concise Astrobot is that it never resorts to pulling a Michael Bay and showing you a bunch of flashy things just because they're scared of losing your attention. Which, just to clarify, is not something I'm saying Persona specifically resorts to, but there are a lot of games that do resort to that. Also, another thing I want to clarify too is what I mean when I tell you that you and Fortnite are ruining gaming as a whole. The card on the screen is the whole video I did about the topic, so go watch it to understand what I actually mean.